The morning light filtered through the massive viewport of Harmony Gate Station, casting long shadows across the central plaza. Zara moved gracefully between the market stalls, her silver-blue skin catching the artificial sunlight as she inspected various goods from across the galaxy. As a cultural exchange coordinator for the Villani Trade Consortium, she had visited this neutral station many times, but something felt different today. The difference, she soon realized, was the smell. Sweet jasmine and fresh earth drifted through the recycled air, completely out of place in the metallic corridors of a space station. Following her nose, Zara found herself at the entrance to the hydroponics bay, a section she had never bothered to explore before. The heavy doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing something extraordinary. Gardens stretched out before her in impossible abundance. Terraced beds rose toward the ceiling in spiraling patterns, filled with plants from dozens of worlds. Earth tomatoes grew beside Centauri blue fruit, while delicate Arcturian singing flowers swayed next to robust Martian wheat. The air hummed with the gentle sounds of water systems and growth cycles, creating a peaceful symphony that made Zara's usually tense shoulders relax. "Beautiful, isn't it?" The voice was soft, almost hesitant. Zara turned to see a human man emerging from between the growing beds. He was tall but moved carefully, as if afraid of disturbing the plants around him. His brown hair was slightly messy, and soil stained his simple work clothes. Most striking were his hands, large and strong, yet gentle as they supported a delicate seedling. "I'm sorry," Zara said, suddenly feeling like an intruder. "I didn't mean to disturb your work." "No disturbance at all." The human smiled, and Zara noticed how the expression reached his eyes, making them crinkle at the corners. "I'm Ben. I maintain these gardens. You're welcome here anytime." Zara had met humans before, of course. They were common throughout the galaxy, known for their adaptability and their unfortunate reputation for violence. The Villani Council maintained careful diplomatic relations with human worlds, but privately, many Villani considered humans too unpredictable for close relationships. This human seemed different. "How do you make them all grow together?" Zara asked, genuinely curious. "These plants are from completely different worlds." Ben's face lit up with enthusiasm. "It's all about understanding what each plant needs and finding the balance. Look here." He led her to a section where crystalline vegan moss grew alongside earth ferns. The moss needs high humidity and specific mineral content in the water. The ferns need similar conditions but can't handle the same light spectrum. So I created microenvironments within the larger system. As Ben explained his methods, Zara found herself drawn in by his passion. Here was someone who had dedicated himself to nurturing life in all its forms. He spoke about soil composition and light cycles with the same reverence other humans reserved for weapons and conquest. "This must take enormous patience," Zara observed. "Time moves differently when you're helping something grow," Ben replied quietly. "Plants teach you to think in seasons, not moments." Their first meeting stretched into the afternoon. Ben showed Zara medicinal herbs from her homeworld that he had been cultivating, hoping to trade them back to Villani settlements that had lost access to their original sources. He asked careful questions about Villani culture, genuinely interested in her people's agricultural traditions. When Zara finally left the gardens, she carried with her a small cutting from a harmony vine, known for bringing peace to Villani households. Ben had wrapped it carefully and included detailed growing instructions written in precise, gentle handwriting. That evening, as Zara prepared her daily reports, she found her thoughts returning to the quiet human gardener. She had expected someone rough around the edges, like most humans she encountered in trade negotiations. Instead, she had met someone who spoke to plants like old friends and treated every growing thing as precious. The next day, Zara found an excuse to visit the gardens again. Ben welcomed her warmly, showing her new seedlings that had sprouted overnight. This time, their conversation drifted beyond plants to stories of their respective homeworlds. Ben described Earth's vast forests and seasonal changes, while Zara shared tales of Velan's floating gardens and musical agriculture, where plants grew in rhythm with ancient songs. I would love to hear those growing songs sometime, Ben said wistfully. I imagine they're beautiful. Without thinking, Zara began to hum one of the traditional melodies. The sound drifted through the garden, and she noticed how the plants seemed to respond, leaves turning slightly toward her voice. Ben watched in wonder, his expression soft with appreciation. That was incredible, he said when she finished. Thank you for sharing that with me. Something warm bloomed in Zara's chest at his genuine gratitude. When was the last time someone had thanked her for simply being herself? Their friendship developed slowly, like the carefully tended plants around them. Zara began visiting the gardens regularly, sometimes bringing data tablets to work while sitting among the flowering vines. Ben would move quietly around her, tending his plants with practiced efficiency. They shared meals of fresh vegetables and fruits from the gardens, simple food that somehow tasted better in Ben's quiet company. Other Villani on the station began to notice Zara's frequent absences. Her colleague Kes cornered her one day after a trade meeting. You're spending a lot of time with that human, Kes said, her tone carefully neutral. The council might have concerns. Ben is helping me understand multi-species agriculture, Zara replied, which was technically true. It's valuable for our trade negotiations. Kes studied her friend's face. Be careful, Zara. Humans are not like us. They smile and speak softly, but underneath they're still predators. Their whole species climbed to the top of their world's food chain by being killers. Zara wanted to argue, but she knew Kes wasn't being cruel. The reputation of humans was well established throughout the galaxy. Even their allies maintained careful boundaries, never forgetting that humanity had carved its place among the stars through superior warfare and relentless expansion. Yet the Ben she knew barely spoke above a whisper and spent his days nurturing life. Surely he was proof that individual humans could transcend their species' violent nature. Months passed, and Zara's visits to the gardens became the highlight of her days. Ben taught her to read soil pH levels and recognize plant diseases. She shared Villani meditation techniques that helped center the mind for patient work. They developed a comfortable rhythm together, moving around each other in the gardens like dance partners who had practiced for years. One evening, as they sat watching the artificial sunset through the viewport, Ben spoke more personally than usual. I wasn't always a gardener, he said quietly. Before coming here, my life was very different. Much louder. Zara waited for him to continue, but Ben seemed to retreat into himself. She reached over and placed her hand gently on his arm, offering comfort without demanding explanations. We all have paths that led us to where we are, she said. What matters is who you choose to be now. Ben looked at her with such gratitude that Zara felt her breath catch. In that moment, she realized her feelings had grown beyond friendship into something deeper and more complex. The realization should have frightened her. Villani rarely formed romantic bonds outside their species, and certainly never with humans. But Ben made her feel peaceful in a way she had never experienced. His presence was like sunlight after a storm, warm and healing. When Ben asked if she would like to share dinner in his quarters the following evening, Zara said yes without hesitation. The dinner was simple, vegetables from the garden prepared with herbs Ben had grown himself. They ate by soft lights that mimicked natural sunset, and their conversation flowed easily between serious topics and gentle humor. Ben had decorated his living space with thriving plants, creating an atmosphere of natural tranquility that felt more like home than any place Zara had ever lived. Thank you, Ben said as the evening wound down. I haven't felt this comfortable with another person in a very long time. Neither have I, Zara admitted. When Ben walked her back to her quarters, he stopped at her door and hesitated, as if weighing important words. Zara, I care about you deeply, he said finally. But I want you to know that being close to me might complicate your life. Humans carry certain expectations, certain histories. I would understand if you decided the risk was too great. Instead of answering with words, Zara leaned up and kissed him gently. The touch was soft and brief, but it communicated everything she couldn't yet say aloud. From that night forward, their relationship blossomed like the carefully tended plants in Ben's gardens. They spent their free time together, sharing meals and quiet conversations. Ben introduced Zara to earth music, soft melodies that complemented the peaceful atmosphere he cultivated. Zara taught Ben traditional Villani crafts, and he proved surprisingly adept at the patient detail work. The other residents of Harmony Gate began to notice the unusual couple. Some watched with curiosity, others with skepticism. A few Villani traders made pointed comments about the wisdom of getting involved with humans, but Zara deflected their concerns with calm confidence. Ben is not like other humans, she would say, and truly believed it. Station Administrator Chen, an elderly human woman, pulled Zara aside one day. Ben is a good man, Chen said carefully. But he carries heavy baggage from his past. Are you prepared for that reality? Everyone has a past, Zara replied. I care about who he is with me. Chen nodded slowly. Just remember that sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, especially for people like Ben. Zara dismissed the warning as unnecessary worry. The Ben she knew was gentle and thoughtful, dedicated to creating beauty and nurturing growth. Whatever shadows existed in his history seemed irrelevant to their present happiness. As their first year together passed, Zara and Ben settled into a comfortable domestic routine. They maintained separate quarters to respect Villani customs, but spent most of their time together either in the gardens or exploring the cultural offerings of the station. Ben proved to have unexpected knowledge of art and music from across the galaxy, while Zara discovered a talent for understanding the complex ecological balances that kept Ben's gardens thriving. When Ben proposed a formal bonding ceremony, Zara accepted without reservation. The celebration was small but beautiful, held in the garden surrounded by blooming flowers from a dozen worlds. Representatives from both their peoples attended, though some Villani relatives sent only polite but distant congratulations. You're sure about this? Kes asked privately before the ceremony. There's no shame in choosing someone safer. Ben is the safest person I know, Zara replied with complete honesty. He makes me feel more like myself than anyone ever has. The ceremony itself was perfect. Ben had woven together traditions from both their cultures, creating something new and meaningful. When they exchanged vows, his voice was steady and full of love, promising to tend their relationship with the same care he showed his plants. Life as a bonded couple brought new joys. They redesigned part of their living space to accommodate both Villani and human comfort needs. Ben created a small meditation garden where Zara could practice her traditional exercises, while she helped him design more efficient growing systems for the main gardens. 3 years passed in peaceful contentment. Zara thrived in her work, earning promotions and recognition for her cultural exchange programs. Ben's gardens became famous throughout the sector, drawing visitors who wanted to see the remarkable multi-species ecosystems he had created. They talked often of visiting each other's homeworlds someday, of sharing their life with extended families and old friends. Ben spoke wistfully of showing Zara the natural forests of Earth, while she dreamed of introducing him to the ancient garden cities of Velan. Other species on the station began to point to their relationship as proof that humans could indeed choose peace over conflict. Ben became something of a local celebrity, the gentle human who proved the stereotypes wrong. Children from visiting families would seek him out, fascinated by someone who could make anything grow. Zara basked in the knowledge that she had been right to trust her heart. Ben was living proof that individuals could transcend their species' reputation, that love and patience could overcome any amount of prejudice or fear. She had married a quiet human who spoke to plants in whispers and treated every living thing as sacred. Nothing in their peaceful life prepared her for the day when that quiet human would reveal the deadly skills hidden beneath his gentle exterior. The alarm that shattered the peaceful morning on Harmony Gate Station was unlike anything Zara had ever heard. It started as a low rumble that vibrated through the metal floors, then escalated into a piercing wail that made her teeth ache. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in harsh red as automated voices announced, "Code Black, hostile boarding, all civilians to designated safe areas." Zara had been reviewing trade proposals in her office when the attack began. Through her viewport, she could see the sleek black ships of the Korthak Syndicate attached to the station's outer hull like parasites. The Korthak were notorious throughout the galaxy as brutal raiders who took what they wanted and destroyed what they couldn't steal. Her hands shook as she activated her communication device. "Ben, where are you?" His voice came through clearly, still carrying that familiar gentle tone despite the chaos around them. "I'm in Section C, checking the emergency systems. Zara, you need to get to our quarters right now and lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me." "But the safe areas." "Our quarters are safer," Ben interrupted, his voice carrying an authority she had never heard before. "Trust me on this. Go now." Something in his tone made Zara move without further questions. She ran through corridors filled with panicking civilians and overwhelmed security personnel. The station's defensive systems were already failing. Smoke billowed from damaged sections, and the sound of weapons fire echoed through the metal halls. When she reached their living quarters, Zara sealed the door and activated the emergency locks. Through the walls, she could hear the terrible sounds of the Korthak raiders moving through the station. Their guttural voices carried clearly as they shouted orders in their harsh language, punctuated by the screams of terrified civilians. The Korthak were massive beings, standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray hide that could deflect most standard weapons. Their culture celebrated strength through brutality, and they viewed other species as either useful slaves or obstacles to be removed. Harmony Gate's security force, designed to handle minor disputes between traders, stood no chance against professional raiders. Zara crouched in the corner of their bedroom, trying to make sense of what was happening. The Korthak had never attacked a neutral station before. Harmony Gate was protected by treaties with multiple governments. What could possibly be worth this level of risk? Her answer came when she overheard Korthak voices in the corridor outside. Her translation device picked up fragments of their conversation. "Find the Villani trade data," one raider growled. "Those shipping routes are worth more than all the cargo on this station." "What about prisoners?" another voice asked. "Take the useful ones. Kill the rest." Zara's blood turned cold. They weren't here for random piracy. Someone had told the Korthak about the classified trade route information stored in the Villani diplomatic sections. This was a targeted strike designed to cripple Villani commerce throughout the sector. The sound of weapon fire grew closer. Station security was falling back through the residential areas, unable to hold their positions against the raiders' superior firepower and armor. Zara pressed herself against the wall and tried to contact Ben again, but her communication device only produced static. Then she heard something that made no sense. Silence. The weapons fire stopped. The shouting stopped. Even the background noise of the station's systems seemed muffled. For several minutes, an eerie quiet settled over their section of Harmony Gate. When the fighting resumed, something had changed. The Korthak voices now carried notes of confusion and fear. Instead of confident orders, Zara heard urgent warnings and panicked reports. "Target moving through Section B," one raider reported. "Single humanoid. Fast. Send reinforcements," came the reply. "How many humans are we dealing with?" "Just one. But he's taking out entire squads." "Impossible. Increase firepower. Overwhelm the target." The next transmission came minutes later, filled with static and terror. "Reinforcement team is down. All of them. We need to retreat. Stand your ground," the commander's voice crackled through the communication channels. "It's one human against 40 Korthak warriors. You don't understand. This isn't a normal human." Zara pressed her ear to the door, trying to make sense of what she was hearing. One human was somehow fighting off the entire raiding force. It seemed impossible. Humans were adaptable and clever, but they were still physically smaller than most warrior species. How could a single human pose a threat to armored Korthak raiders? The fighting moved through the station in a pattern that gradually became clear to Zara. The mysterious human defender was systematically cutting off the raiders' escape routes while eliminating their forces piece by piece. The Korthak, accustomed to easy victories through overwhelming force, were being outmaneuvered by someone who understood their tactics better than they did. "Fall back to the ships," the raider commander finally ordered. "Leave the data. This job isn't worth the losses." "What about the mission?" "Forget the mission. We're leaving now." The sound of boots running through corridors gradually faded as the surviving Korthak fled back to their ships. Within an hour of their arrival, the raiders were gone, leaving behind only damaged systems and the bodies of their fallen warriors. Zara remained in the locked room until she heard the gentle knock she had been waiting for. 3 soft taps, pause, 2 taps, pause, 3 taps. The code Ben had established for emergencies, though she had never imagined they would need to use it. When she opened the door, Ben stood in the corridor looking exactly as he always did. His clothes were clean, his hair neat, his expression calm. If not for the red emergency lighting and the smell of smoke in the air, Zara might have thought the entire attack had been a nightmare. "Are you hurt?" Ben asked, his voice carrying the same gentle concern it always held. "No, I'm fine," Zara replied, studying his face for signs of stress or fear. "Ben, what happened out there?" "They're saying one human fought off the entire raiding party." Something flickered in Ben's eyes, gone too quickly for Zara to interpret. "The station's automated defenses worked better than expected," he said. "The Korthak weren't prepared for organized resistance." It was a reasonable explanation, but something about Ben's tone made Zara uneasy. She had learned to read his expressions over their years together, and right now he looked like someone choosing his words very carefully. The next few hours passed in a blur of emergency procedures. Medical teams treated the wounded while engineers assessed damage to critical systems. Station Administrator Chen coordinated with galactic patrol units that arrived to secure the area and investigate the attack. Zara helped with relief efforts, using her diplomatic skills to calm panicked civilians and coordinate with various species representatives. Throughout the crisis, Ben worked quietly to restore damaged sections of the hydroponics bay, his presence steady and reassuring as always. It wasn't until 3 days later that Zara saw the security footage. She had been working with Chen to file insurance claims when the administrator pulled up video files from the attack. Most of the station's cameras had been damaged or disabled, but a few emergency units had continued recording throughout the crisis. "I want to show you something," Chen said, her expression serious. "But I need you to understand that what you're about to see stays between us." The first video showed a Korthak patrol moving through Section C, confident and aggressive. They kicked down doors and ransacked storage areas, looking for valuable cargo and potential prisoners. The timestamp indicated this was about 20 minutes after the attack began. The second video showed the same corridor 15 minutes later. 3 Korthak warriors lay motionless on the floor, their weapons scattered. There was no sign of struggle, no damage to the surrounding area. The raiders had simply been eliminated with surgical precision. "Watch this one," Chen said quietly, switching to a different camera angle. The screen showed a maintenance corridor where 6 Korthak had taken defensive positions, using the narrow space to create a choke point that should have been impossible for any attacker to breach. The video quality was poor, but Zara could see a figure moving in the shadows at the edge of the frame. Then the figure stepped into the light. It was Ben. But it wasn't the Ben that Zara knew. This version of her husband moved with deadly grace, his body flowing through combat motions with perfect efficiency. In his hands was a weapon Zara had never seen before, a blade that seemed to cut through Korthak armor as easily as Ben cut through garden soil. The 6 raiders, each nearly twice Ben's size and weight, lasted less than 30 seconds against him. "How is this possible?" Zara whispered, watching her gentle husband systematically dismantle trained warriors. "Keep watching," Chen said. The next video showed Ben in the station's central hub, facing down 12 Korthak raiders who had cornered a group of civilian families. The raiders held superior positions and overwhelming firepower, but Ben moved through them like a force of nature. He anticipated their shots, used their own size against them, and struck with precision that seemed almost supernatural. Not once did he endanger the civilians he was protecting. Every move was calculated to eliminate threats while minimizing collateral damage. When the last raider fell, Ben immediately shifted back to his normal gentle demeanor, helping the frightened families find safety with the same careful hands that had just delivered death with mathematical precision. "Who is he?" Zara asked, her voice barely audible. Chen pulled up a file on her computer. The document was heavily redacted, but Zara could see enough to understand. Benjamin Torres, former Sergeant Major, Human Marine Expeditionary Force. Decorated veteran of the Frontier Wars. Specialist in asymmetric warfare and close-quarters combat. He retired 5 years ago after his entire unit was lost in the Battle of Kepler Station, Chen explained. Officially, he was the only survivor because he was off-duty during the attack. Unofficially, the records suggest he was the only one who escaped because he fought his way out through impossible odds. Zara stared at the information, trying to reconcile it with the man she had married. "But he's a gardener," she said weakly. "Yes, he is," Chen agreed. "And from what I understand, that's what he wants to be. But when the people he cares about are threatened, the old training takes over." "Why are you showing me this?" Chen closed the files and looked directly at Zara. "Because you deserve to know who you're married to. Ben chose not to tell you about his past, probably to protect both of you from exactly this kind of situation. But now that it's happened, you need to decide if you can accept all of who he is." That evening, Zara sat in their quarters waiting for Ben to return from his work in the gardens. When he arrived, carrying a small bouquet of flowers he had grown for her, she looked at his hands and tried to imagine them wielding the deadly blade she had seen in the security footage. "How was your day?" Ben asked, settling beside her with his usual gentle smile. "Quiet," Zara replied, though inside her mind was anything but peaceful. Ben had saved the station. He had protected hundreds of innocent people, including herself. But he had done it by becoming someone completely different from the man she thought she knew. As she watched him arrange the flowers in a vase, moving with the same careful precision she had seen him use against the Korthak raiders, Zara realized she was married to a stranger. The question now was whether that stranger was someone she could love, or someone she should fear. For 3 days after seeing the security footage, Zara watched her husband with new eyes. Ben continued his gentle routines as if nothing had changed. He tended his plants with the same patient care, spoke in the same soft tones, and brought her small gifts from the garden just as he always had. But now Zara found herself studying his movements, looking for signs of the deadly warrior hidden beneath the surface. She noticed things that had escaped her attention before. The way Ben instinctively positioned himself between her and any potential threats when they walked through crowded areas. How his eyes constantly scanned their surroundings, cataloging exits and analyzing the people around them. The fact that he never sat with his back to a door, always choosing seats that gave him clear sightlines of entire rooms. Most telling was his hands. Those same gentle fingers that coaxed delicate flowers to bloom had moved with lethal precision against trained warriors. Zara watched him work in the garden and tried to imagine those hands holding weapons instead of gardening tools. On the 4th evening, as they shared dinner in their quarters, Zara finally found the courage to speak. "Ben, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." He looked up from his meal, and for just a moment, she saw wariness flash across his features. "Of course. What is it?" "During the attack, there are reports that a single human fought off the entire Korthak raiding force. I've heard people talking about it throughout the station. Some are calling it impossible." Ben set down his fork carefully. His expression became very still, the way it did when he was choosing his words with extreme care. "What exactly are you asking me, Zara?" "I'm asking if that human was you." The silence stretched between them for long seconds. Zara could hear the gentle hum of the air recycling systems and the distant murmur of station life continuing around them. When Ben finally spoke, his voice carried a weight she had never heard before. Yes, he said simply. It was me. Hearing the confirmation somehow made it real in a way that watching the footage hadn't. Zara felt her understanding of their entire relationship shift and realign. Who are you, Ben? Really? Ben stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars beyond the station. I was a soldier, Zara. For 15 years, that was all I was. I joined the Marines when I was 18 and spent my entire adult life fighting wars across the frontier. I was good at it. Too good. Chen showed me your service record, Zara said gently. I know about your unit. Ben's shoulders tensed. Then you know I failed them. I was supposed to be there when the attack came. Instead, I was off the base dealing with personal matters. When I got back, they were all dead. The records say you were the only survivor because you fought your way out. I survived because I wasn't there when my family needed me most, Ben replied, his voice thick with old pain. 43 good people died because their sergeant wasn't at his post. Zara rose and moved to stand beside him at the viewport. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? Ben turned to face her, and she saw tears in his eyes. I was their leader. Their protector. I should have been there. And if you had been there, you would have died with them. Then who would have saved this station 3 days ago? Ben was quiet for a long moment. After Kepler Station, I couldn't continue being a soldier. Every time I held a weapon, I saw their faces. So I retired and came here, looking for something peaceful. Something that created life instead of taking it. You found gardening. I found purpose in helping things grow instead of watching them die. When I worked with plants, I could forget about the wars and the killing. I could be someone different. Ben looked directly at her. When I met you, I thought I could finally leave that part of myself behind completely. Zara reached out and took his hand, feeling the calluses and scars she had somehow never noticed before. But you can't leave it behind, can you? Not completely. No, Ben admitted. When I saw those raiders threatening innocent people, threatening you, all the old training came back. I couldn't stand by and watch them hurt people under my protection. Is that how you see it? Everyone on this station is under your protection? Ben considered the question carefully. Not exactly. But when someone attacks the place I call home, when they threaten the people I care about, I can't help but respond. It's who I am underneath everything else. Zara studied his face, seeing the man she had married overlaid with this new understanding of his capabilities. Are you afraid of that part of yourself? Terrified, Ben said without hesitation. Do you know what it feels like to realize you can kill 40 armed raiders and feel nothing but cold satisfaction afterward? That's not normal, Zara. That's not healthy. But you stopped, Zara pointed out. When the threat was over, you came back to me. You went back to your gardens. You chose to be gentle again. This time I did. But what about next time? What if someday I can't find my way back to being the man you married? Zara was quiet for several minutes, processing everything she had learned. Outside the viewport, cargo ships moved peacefully between the stars, carrying goods and passengers to distant worlds. It was the kind of quiet, ordinary scene that Ben had helped preserve through his actions. Ben, do you remember what you told me when we first met? About plants teaching you to think in seasons instead of moments? He nodded. I think humans are like that too, but in reverse. Most species, we're what we are in each moment. Vellani are peaceful, so we act peacefully. Korthak are aggressive, so they act aggressively. But humans carry multiple seasons within themselves at the same time. Ben frowned, not understanding. You're not two different people, Zara continued. You're one person with the capacity for both incredible gentleness and incredible strength. The same qualities that make you a gifted warrior also make you a gifted gardener. Patience, precision, understanding systems and how they work, knowing exactly when and how to act. I'm not sure that's a comfort. It should be. Do you think I fell in love with you despite your strength, or because of it? Ben looked surprised. What do you mean? I mean that your capacity for violence isn't separate from your capacity for peace. They're two expressions of the same deep strength. You choose every day to be gentle when you could choose to be dangerous. That choice, made over and over again, that's what makes you remarkable. Even knowing what I'm capable of. Zara squeezed his hand. Especially knowing what you're capable of. Anyone can be peaceful when peace is easy. But choosing gentleness when you have the power to take what you want by force, that takes real courage. They stood together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Finally, Ben spoke again. The other species on the station have been looking at me differently since the attack. Some with fear, some with awe. A few Korthak traders who arrived yesterday crossed to the other side of the corridor when they saw me coming. Are you sorry about that? No, Ben said, surprising them both. I'm not. Let them remember that humans can be dangerous when we need to be. Maybe it will make them think twice before threatening places like this again. And the families you saved? How do they look at you? Ben smiled for the first time since their conversation began. Like I'm still the same person who grows their children's favorite fruits and teaches them to plant seeds. Because you are. Over the following weeks, word of what had happened at Harmony Gate spread throughout the sector. The story grew in the telling, as stories do, but the core remained the same. A single human had defended an entire station against overwhelming odds, not through superior technology or numbers, but through skill, determination, and an absolute refusal to allow innocent people to be harmed. The reaction from other species was mixed. Some governments quietly began requesting human advisors for their security forces. Others imposed new restrictions on human immigration, nervous about the implications of having such capable fighters living among their populations. For Zara and Ben, life gradually returned to normal, but with a new depth of understanding between them. Ben continued to tend his gardens, but now other species came to visit not just to see the remarkable plants, but to meet the legendary defender of Harmony Gate. It's strange, Ben told Zara one evening as they watched a group of young Centauri children learning to plant seeds. Before the attack, people saw me as proof that humans could be peaceful. Now they see me as proof that humans can be dangerous. But I'm the same person I always was. No, you're not, Zara said gently. Before, you were hiding part of yourself. Now you're whole. And you're comfortable with that? With all of what I am? Zara looked at her husband, this complex man who could nurture the tiniest seedling to maturity and defend hundreds of people with equal skill and dedication. Ben, I didn't marry you despite your capacity for strength. I married you because of it. Because the same power that makes you dangerous also makes you safe to love. You could have chosen to use your abilities for selfish purposes, but instead you choose every day to protect and nurture. That's not just strength, that's wisdom. That night, as they lay together listening to the gentle sounds of the station's life support systems, Ben spoke into the darkness. I used to have nightmares about Kepler Station. About all the people I couldn't save. But since the attack here, they've stopped. Why do you think that is? Because I finally understand something. I can't save everyone. I couldn't save my unit, and I can't prevent every tragedy in the galaxy. But I can choose to protect the people within my reach, the places I call home. And that has to be enough. Zara smiled in the darkness. It's more than enough. It's everything. The next morning brought news that 3 other stations in the sector had requested Ben's consultation on their defensive systems. Word was spreading that humans possessed not just the ability to fight, but the wisdom to know when fighting was necessary and the restraint to stop when it wasn't. As Ben prepared to leave for his first consulting visit, Zara helped him pack a small case with cuttings from his favorite plants. Seeds for new gardens, she asked. Seeds for new hope, Ben replied, kissing her goodbye. I think it's time for humans to be known for what we choose to grow, not just what we're capable of destroying. Watching him leave, Zara realized that she hadn't just married a quiet human who happened to be capable of great violence. She had married a quiet human who had chosen to be a guardian, someone who understood that true strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know what was worth protecting and the courage to stand between danger and the innocent. That, she thought, was the most human thing of all.